Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Wednesday. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome all listeners to Wednesday. Let's conquer this day like it's the last slice of pizza in the break room.
Oh, that is mine. I love pizza.
See.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of a love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Well, let's jump right into stories while I enjoy my morning café brew. What am I drinking this morning?
You're going to enjoy some Earl Grey tea with just a little bit of agave.
Oh, this is splendiferous. 5 out of 5. This tastes like Fruit Loops.
Fruit. Wow. Okay, well, I've never heard of it quite put like that, but I'm really glad you like it.
That's fantastic.
All right. Well, for any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below.
I'm uncultured.
It's okay. You're learning now.
Fruit Loops.
For our first story, am I the a-hole for telling a friend I did not want her to join my date and I for dinner? I, 26 female, have a friend, 25 female, who I met in college. And although losing touch for a bit after college, I moved to the same town as her 6 months ago for work, and we've hung out quite a bit since then. I have kind of integrated into her friend group, 5 other girls not including us, although I'm not as close with them as they are with each other, which makes sense seeing as how they've known each other a bit longer. I was recently on a first date with a woman that I've liked for a bit, 27 female. We were having a coffee at a cafe, and all of a sudden my friend walks up to us and says hi, not a big deal. I know she comes here a lot and I introduced them. My friend is super nice to my date. At this point, I hadn't told my friend this was a date. She knows I've dated women in the past, but I wasn't expecting her to realize this was a date because it could very well have just been a friend. Then she asks if she can join us and starts to pull up a chair. My date is visibly thrown off by this, as am I. So I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but date's name and I are on a date right now. I'll see you later though." My friend says, "Oh, I don't mind," and sits. I reiterated more clearly, "I'd love to hang out another time, but right now I'd like for it to just be date's name and I." She says, "Okay," and leaves. I thought that was the end of it. Not at all a big deal. I don't expect her to automatically know who I am and am not on a date with. I get a call from a different girl in the friend group that night who tells me that my friend called her and was pissed off about earlier. So I immediately call my friend and ask if we can talk. She says it was rude of me to brush her off. It wouldn't have been a big deal to join us. And her other gay friend lets her hang out with him and his boyfriend all the time. This friend is not a part of the friend group. I have never met him. This gets to me a little because I feel like the two situations are only being compared because her friend and I are both not straight. I tell her that because it was a date, it's different, and that she can't expect to join me on a first date. She keeps arguing, and finally I get fed up and snap at her, "Be f***ing honest. If I was on a date with a guy, you would have taken no for an answer and not had a problem," and then hang up. She has not talked to me since then, but she told the entire friend group and they are now split. I know this because the friend who first told me that she was pissed off, as well as one other girl, messaged me individually to let me know what was going on and that they're sorry about what happened. The messages from the people on my friends, maybe former friend, I don't know, side, are making me second guess myself. I do get that I snapped at her on the phone and was rude at the end of our conversation. I don't think I'm wrong for not wanting her to join us, but am I the a-hole for the way I behaved at the end of our convo?
Okay. What an interesting story to get us kicked off with on Wednesday.
That last pizza.
It's mine. All right. So let's see if I understand this story. OP is 26 and she has a friend that is 25.
Correct.
They were in college together. That's how they met. And I guess there was a little bit of distance after graduation because it says that she kind of goes a couple years without seeing each other. But they happened to move to the same city and they've rekindled their friendship. That's really cool.
And even integrated some friends together.
Into her own friend group. So that's really cool. Because I know it's really hard when people move to new cities, find friends and they share anything in common with. So it's nice. Now, we get into the other side of the story. OP is on a date. She does point out something interesting, but we'll cover that in a little bit. She's on a date with a woman. Seems to be going well, hopefully. So they're at I'm guessing it's some type of cafe. I'm not really certain, but it sounds
was a
like
cafe.
Okay, sounds like that's the situation. So they're at the cafe, they're enjoying a date, and OP's friend comes in, sees them at a table enjoying their time, proceeds to walk over and ask if she can join them. Now, she's allowed to ask that question. She doesn't. OP is very right, and she's very logical about this. She doesn't expect that someone on the outside would know that that was a date or not. So she asks, can I join you guys? And then OP says, politely, no, me and so-and-so are in a date right now. And then OP's friend hears something else, I guess, and then proceeds to go, oh, I don't mind, and starts pulling up a chair. That third wheel, secondhand cringe, the second you started reading that to me, it felt like I was watching a scene out of The Office.
I was going to say, Michael Scott wouldn't see it.
I love Michael Scott. That is...
The cringe hurts me physically.
But that's kind of what I was feeling when she's pulling up a chair and says, oh, I don't mind. Hold on. You just got told someone is on a date. I don't understand why. And I get it. Maybe the friend isn't really that caught up on those type of social cues yet. So maybe she's got a little bit to learn. But she pulled up the chair knowing that that was a date. And then ROP very politely still says, oh, I'm sorry. We want to be on this date alone. I don't see where there's a problem in that, especially when she was polite about it. Then she says, okay, and storms off. She thinks everything's okay because normally it would be. But then she starts going to the other people in their friend group and starts making a mountain out of a molehill. So now they've started the strife within the friend group and now they're all picking sides. I think the first question is, you're definitely not the a-hole for not wanting that. I think you handled it appropriately for what you were given and the circumstance you were in. Number 2, so are we asking her anger in the situation got the best of her and she yelled that at her friend?
I suppose
she would be
so.
wrong? But for the context of it, are we saying that maybe the friend has some type of bigotry? Like, is that where this is swinging? So I guess I would say no, because if you are going to be that bigot, why should she have to tolerate you as a friend? That's not a good friend.
Funny that you say that.
Okay.
But I will leave it right there for now.
Interesting.
Let me go ahead and give the consensus. The consensus is not the a-hole for the situation overall, as far as anybody.
That's kind of how I feel.
You kind of broke it down very well, in my opinion.
Did I?
But let me go ahead and provide you an update from our poster.
Oh, good googly moogly.
Okay. So the 2 girls who reached out and sided with me just let me know that in the last few hours, she's been saying stuff that pretty much heavily implies that I'm not actually bisexual and I'm just straight. So I guess that explains a lot of it. They obviously were not okay with it, as one of the girls is bisexual and has a boyfriend. They both left the group chat and still want to be friends with me. The other people in the group chat have said nothing to me, and honestly, I don't need the drama. It sucks to realize a friend of mine felt this way about me for years, but I'm glad I at least know what was up now.
Kind of felt like something was there. So yeah, she's wrong on both accounts. That's not a good friend, and you're better off without her.
I think it's pretty crazy that someone would know that their friend is bisexual and would truly think that they're not, because that's just their viewpoint. They're like, you're not bisexual, you're actually straight. The end.
You're gonna tell me who I am? What?
I find it funny because I can't imagine trying to change someone because you think that's the right thing to change them to.
You can't change people. They are who they are. So that's ridiculous to even have that notion. You're better off not having that type of friend in your life. That's definitely not a friend.
Well, I know our poster's trying to find love. Let's see how these 2 loves are doing in our next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend that being depressed is not an excuse for being lazy?
Let's buckle up.
It's a ride. I, 29, have always supported my girlfriend, 23. We have been together for 4 years now and lived together for 1. She has always had anxiety as well as depression, where some months are worse than others. I have supported her through all of this, and I understand it is very hard for her. In January, she lost her job due to the current world circumstances. By March, she hit a low point with not eating as much, crying, irritability, typical traits of depression. I have comforted her as much as possible and taken care of everything. However, at the beginning of June, I was allowed back to work, and since the house has fallen to shambles, I am too tired by the time I come home to do anything, even cook. Most nights, we order takeout, and on the rare occasion, she makes food. The floors aren't being washed, hoovering isn't being done, laundry is a mountain, and dishes are everywhere. I try to keep on top of it, but with work, it's almost impossible. She is home all day. She lies in bed till late afternoon, watches Netflix, eats bowls of cereal, and naps. That's about it. I've tried to gently coax her to do more, and she says she will get to it, but never does. I finally snapped. Told her I was sick of her doing nothing all day and leaving the housework to me. That if she is here and I am working, she needs to be pulling her weight. She got upset and said that she wants to, but she can never find the motivation, that she is tired all the time. I said I understood she was depressed, but it isn't an excuse to do nothing and be lazy. No one likes housework, but I won't take any more excuses about it. She needs to start doing it or leave. Next day, I come home to a clean house and a note from her saying she was sorry and is going to stay with her mother. Her mom helped her clean before they left. I tried calling, but she wouldn't pick up. When I rang the house, her mom answered and had a lot to say. She was furious, telling me about how she is struggling and I am making her worse, that I should be supporting her, not ignoring that she is in a bad place, and so on. I was told my girlfriend has been crying all day in her bedroom, and I feel awful. I never wanted to hurt her. I just snapped. I tried to get her mother to give my girlfriend the phone, but she wouldn't speak to me. It feels like a lose-lose situation. On one hand, I know depression results in lack of motivation and cleanliness. On the other, I can't stand to see our home in such chaos. I've never had depression, so I can't say for sure how bad it truly is. That's why I find it more difficult to 100% empathize. Am I the a-hole for telling her depression isn't an excuse? Extra info: she has a therapist and talks regularly with them. Her depression is worse since losing her job. Usually she is quite clean and tidy. We don't usually have this issue. She is looking for a job despite depression, etc. I have enough money to support us both in the meantime. Am I the a-hole?
Okay, so we're dealing with a very nuanced story because depression can be that for a lot of people. Although I may not, like the OP in this situation, have felt depression in that level, but I do have compassion for people that feel that level of depression. So in this story, OP is 29. They're in their late 20s, I believe.
Correct. And his girlfriend is 23.
Okay, much younger. Can I ask, this story sounds a little older. They say world events. So are we talking about the beginning of COVID?
2 years ago.
Okay. So definitely a little bit older. And that's why I was wondering, I'm like, well, we're not really going through the lockdowns and things like that anymore. So now that I've got that framed correctly, that was a tough time for everyone at the beginning. Or sorry, not just the beginning, through most of that. Everyone handled it differently, especially if you're given the economic situations you were in. Jobs got lost. A lot of people dealt with a lot of depression. If you were one of the unfortunate ones that happened to lose family members, there's a whole litany of things that goes into what those years were for a lot of people. It impacted everyone differently. ROP's girlfriend's 23. She lost her job. And it sounds like even before this, she was dealing with depression problems. ROP already says it. She was in therapy.
She's got anxiety issues.
She was already dealing with a lot. It sounds like for ROP, he says it. He's not felt that level of depression before. It's hard to compute how that impacts other people outside of you just going, well, I can deal with it. You can deal with it. Pick your head up and keep moving. That's kind of essentially what he's telling her. And I can understand that when you're the one working, if someone in the house isn't working, that they should at least be helping out, picking up that side of the house, cleaning, making things easier for both of you, right? It's a team effort. So I can understand his frustration in that moment, because if this has been going on for a little bit, that would be deflating, dealing with work, coming home, and then it sounds like the entire house was in a disheveled state.
It could even unknowingly cause him to start having almost depressive tendencies
Sure,
without realizing it.
If you're used to your partner being clean and tidy, and I'm sure seeing her in that state, that can also play with you too. It sounds like he's trying to be supportive. And it does sound like at the end of this story that he's very remorseful for what happened. ROP definitely needs to learn how to help his girlfriend be more of a supportive partner in those moments. Figure out the way to do it, because you need that, because not everyone's going to be happy 100% of the time. That's not how life works. But to learn how to communicate and pick each other up when the times do get dark, it's important. So this is a learning experience for them. I'm hoping that he definitely saw the viewpoint that I'm sure people gave him. And I hope they didn't just destroy him completely. I don't believe anyone's the a-hole. I do feel for the girlfriend, and I hope she is getting the help she does need.
So, there was a surprising mix of sort of everything thrown into here.
I can bet.
The overall consensus is no a-holes here. You had some people that said he's the a-hole because of how he spoke to her. We have not the a-hole that, she needs to hold up her peace. So there was a lot of back and forth. But I give more credence to the individuals who actually suffer from depression that sort of provided their stance points on what it's like to actually deal with it. And a lot of them were very honest and candid and said there's no a-holes here. They're both entitled to their feelings and they're working through these issues. Now, I thought it was interesting personally. Of course, I've even dealt with small bouts of depression. Luckily enough, I have you to catch me and lift me up. But I think this one description concerning depression is very on the key, in my opinion. And this commenter says, depression is a gluttonous beast. When it drains the primary victim to a barely functioning husk of a person, it gets hungry and starts to feed off the energy of those close to the victim. To keep this supply going, it manipulates the victim into, as you said, lose-lose-lose situation, so it can stuff itself on the sadness and distress. I have it, I hate it, I live with it. But it's the hungriest hungry hippo for psychic distress, and it manipulated the perfect situation to not only dig its primary victim deeper, but to chip away at the support system until the main supporter lashes out in a buildup of frustration. This isn't you versus her cleaning issue as much as it is the issue of everyone here, including her therapist from your comments, underestimated the depression. It is far more diabolical than people want to admit because it's honestly terrifying. Since the depression is so strong right now, personifying it can be helpful. It's the third player on the 4D emotional chessboard here, manipulating pieces and moves so it can continue to feast merrily. Practical advice: follow the other commenter's advice to eat your crow while it's fresh and apologize for snapping. It is unfair for you to carry the whole load indefinitely, but empathy and strategy will serve you better here than being right. Go into this with no expectations, beyond being able to give a heartfelt apology and say your piece. If things work out, great, and I wish you both the best together. If not, then that's truly unfortunate, and I wish you both the best on your paths. We actually had a lot of individuals that put forth their problems with depression and anxiety and how much that's actually hurt their relationships. How you're trying to rely on someone so much and it will chip at them. That it needs to be not just one support system trying to chip away at this depression beast, but it needs to be both sides trying to together do it. I think this really hit home for me because, as you know, Timstradamus, when you met me, I really was a mess. And if it wasn't for your help, your strength, and the way that I could go to you and you could see things and provide me with a different perspective than what I feel is this gluttonous beast that always tries to rear its head, I truly would feel lost. And I can really empathize and truly feel for these commenters who put down the struggles that it is in just their minds. It's like a prison. The good part is I actually have an update from our poster. So let's see if I can bring this back just a little. Ultimately, I realized that the majority of the blame was mine. I never ever should have called her lazy because that isn't what she is. I lashed out and I shouldn't have. She stayed at her mother's for a few days and we eventually met to talk. I told her how it just got too much for me, but it was no excuse for lashing out and I apologized. She apologized also, not that she needed to, and we talked for a long while about how we can make our relationship work. I expressed my concerns over her therapist, who was very against anything other than talking therapy. She agreed that he didn't seem to really have her best interests at heart, and she is currently looking for someone new. For now, I suggested she stops looking for work. She got a lot of rejections, and I could see it was upsetting her more. I just felt we should take a step back from that, and I want her to focus a little more on herself. She was unsure as she felt bad that I would be working for both of us, but I assured her it is fine. I make enough to support us both quite comfortably. I also suggested maybe she could volunteer at some point just to get her out and get some more stuff on her resume. I'm no therapist, so these were just suggestions, but it has seemed to have taken some of the pressure off of her, which is all I wanted. We agreed that being in the apartment all day alone and in bed is not good for her, so we came up with a plan that she do an exercise video 3 times a week. It's only a 10-minute one, just so that she's doing something. She has found that she likes doing them. They make her feel a bit better after, and has started something called yin yoga now. To help me, she has 1 chore a day to do. I don't care what it is. It could be dishes, or it could be just putting the laundry in the hamper. This rule has at least gotten her out of bed for part of the day, and she's found that once she starts, she sometimes ends up doing more than one thing. I make sure to show my appreciation for whatever she has done, no matter how small it was. We have set out that every Sunday we will have a deep cleaning day where we get everything done for the week. This has been surprisingly successful. We make it fun and just mess around while still getting things done. It makes the week a lot more manageable when we only have light chores to keep on top of. She is trying more, and I am also working on being more supportive about her depression. I'm researching it more and learning ways I can help her because it is a part of her. We are both putting more effort in and communicating a lot better. I hope we keep making progress because I do love her very much and want us to work.
Attaboy. That's fantastic. Good for him for hearing the viewpoints and understanding it. And it sounds like the both of them love each other a lot and they're going to make it work.
I still imagine them together even to this day.
I hope so. It sounds like their foundation is good. They communicate, they talk, they're willing to work at it. And that's what it takes to be in a relationship. You got to work at it every day.
Well, let's go ahead and leave this happy relationship behind and let's fight a medical bill.
Oh no.
For our next story.
Medical bills.
Am I the a-hole for how I fought my boyfriend's medical bill going too far? My boyfriend had to go to the ER after an accident, and he got a truly ridiculous bill back. I offered to fight the bill for him because I've done it before, and he said sure. I went all out. Because honestly, if we were out $5,000 after insurance, that would fuck up our holiday plans pretty bad. So I had him call the hospital and authorize me to handle his bill and access his medical records. Got an itemized bill and compared the prices for each code to the fair prices. Called billing to dispute the bill, but was told that billing only collects bills I'd need to contact admin to dispute. Bounced around a call center for hours trying to get someone who was actually qualified for bill disputes and getting nowhere. Google and LinkedIn searched for the hospital board of directors and upper management. Got 30 emails of the most influential people at the hospital plus the hospital's investors. Every day would send a few emails working my way up the chain and writing an increasingly long email describing how they billed my client at 7 times over the fair price for services rendered, and how their billing department, customer service department, and the growing list of management I'd emailed had failed to address the issue. Escalated the emails until I was writing the director level staff with the entire board of directors and a number of outside investors CC'd, asking for a written statement regarding their justification for billing at a rate 7 times higher than the national average for commensurate services to what is available at other hospitals, and sternly laying out the failures to appropriately respond at every level of the company. Well, once I'd done all that, which was honestly only like 15 minutes a day, they reduced the bill from $5,000 to $26. Yep, $26. Well, I told my boyfriend the good news, and he was at first overjoyed and blown away, like literally jumping up and down and hugging me and saying I was literally a Christmas miracle. But then when he asked how I did it, I said it wasn't too hard. I just had to send a couple emails each day. He was curious what I'd said, and I handed him my phone. He started to get stressed and flipping back through other emails, which there were like 60 of. He told me I went way too far. He was expecting me to dispute through their billing department or something normal and reasonable like that, not internet stalk every single manager and board member and investor and harass them into dropping the bill. I was frustrated because I just saved us $5,000, actually made it possible for us to afford a nice Christmas and save some money. And he was mad at me because I'd been a bit of a hard ass. I was furious, and he was also mad at me, saying he authorized me to dispute a bill, not basically threaten and harass a whole damn hospital for weeks. Am I the a-hole for how I got my boyfriend's medical bills dropped?
This one is a spasimit ball of you scary girl.
I want her on my side.
Okay, so I don't like he says that she threatened and harassed, but I don't read that in there. She was simply asking questions as to why he's being charged 7 times the normal rate, correct?
Correct.
That's not harassment. I wonder where he's getting off. Is it because of the amount of emails that were sent? Because she says she was targeting different people every day. So it wasn't like she was emailing the same person. Yeah, exactly. She was following the line. So I don't get where the harassment comes from unless there's something we don't know. But outside of that, there's no way that this OP is the a-hole. She sounds like she's concise and she's methodical. I know those type of women. That is Voyse.
Thank you.
So no, having one of those type of people in your life is amazing. Especially because it sounds like for him, he's not that guy. He's not looking around and doing the footwork it takes to get that kind of stuff done. But it sounds like this OP is diligent. I can appreciate that. And so should her boyfriend, because she saved them a lot of money. People will take you for whatever you're willing to give them. I'm impressed. Good for you, OP. $26 after a $5,000 bill? Fantastic. Good for you. So I definitely believe you are not the a-hole.
And the consensus is not the a-hole. In fact, we had some people who was in the medical billing office of hospitals saying, you did a good job.
Nice.
And it was funny because I was reading a conversation back and forth between our poster and one of them saying, do you happen to know who I can reach out to that actually deals with billing disputes? And one of the medical billers said, it's really weird. If you reach the billing department, they should have dealt with it right then. They don't just collect bills. They should be dealing with the disputes.
So they were just pushing off their work and putting you in a circle.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm guessing maybe they were instructed to do that because
most people won't fight.
Right. But there's a right way to do things in business and a wrong way to do things in business. Well, it seems like this boyfriend got really lucky and he's just looking a gift horse in the mouth, but
seems like he needs to give her that $5,000 and then kind of really think about it, because he got given $5,000
and a great Christmas
and an amazing girlfriend.
Now, let's go ahead and walk away from this situation and let's go on to our next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my son I don't want his friend at the family celebration? I'm feeling guilty and I don't know if I handled this the wrong way. My son, 16 male, has a friend who I'll call John, 16 male. My son and John have been friends since 5th grade. I know they're very close. My son talks about him often and likes to buy stuff for him as much as he can. I only met John 3 times, and the only thing I knew about him before meeting him was that his parents were very protective of him, so the first time he came into our home was the first time he was allowed to be with friends. I was really happy to meet John at first because he's my son's closest friend, but I don't know if he is those brutally honest types or doesn't understand there's a time and place for things. When I first met him, my son invited him to the birthday party of his oldest sister, 28 female. John asked a lot of insensitive questions about issues my oldest daughter was going through, which my son must have told him, not sure why. He was very open with what he thought, even if it was just plain rude. He did this 2 other times when he was invited. My son defended him, saying that John didn't know it was wrong because he was raised differently from us each time he did it. We also never got an apology. We were fed up by the 3rd time, and I asked my son to not bring him around next time. He was still allowed to hang out with John, but not bring him over. My son's birthday is coming up, and what we do is have a small celebration, just family and some close friends, and then the birthday person celebrates the day as they wish. My son wants to spend it with John, but also wants to invite John to the family celebration part. He asked multiple times, and I said no. I'd be willing to change my mind if John apologizes to the people he hurt with his questions and, quote-unquote, honesty. He stopped asking me, but it's clear he is upset about it. So am I the a-hole? Should I go with it just for this one day? Edit. Just going to answer some questions that are being brought up a lot. 1. Is John neurodivergent? I don't know, but I see now it could be a possibility. 2. Did I explain to him the questions / what he was saying were inappropriate? Yes, multiple times. So did my daughter. He defended himself by saying he was just being honest or that he just wanted to know. 3. Why did it take so long for me to meet my son's best friend? Well, he has protective parents. He wasn't allowed to visit friends until October when he was 15, around my oldest daughter's birthday. My son never introduced me to John when I picked him up after school, so they may also have different ways of getting to and from school. Am I the a-hole?
Let's go on a journey.
I'm ready.
So this OP fills in some of the questions I already had. So the son is 16 and he has a friend who is also 16. And they've been friends since they were 5, I believe is what you said?
From 5th grade.
So from 5th grade. So that would put them around 10, 11 when they met. So they've been best friends for a little bit. One of the questions I had and OP answered was why it took so long to meet a best friend of your child. That's normally something that gets introduced fairly early on. And OP says it. The parents were just protective. I wonder what the protectiveness was, because they asked if he's neurodivergent, then maybe that's part of the reason why they're being protective about where their son went. So they say the best friend of John has been invited to at least 3 parties. And at every single one of these events, he has been very rude. And then they had another question that I had as well. Did you let the best friend know that this is what he was doing and telling him why he was wrong? OP says yes. And in fact, the child would rebuttal and say, well, I just want to know, or I was just being honest. Anytime someone has to tell you they're just being honest, it's another way of them being rude without taking accountability for them being rude. But we are talking about a child, and it might sound like there is something else going on. So are we trying to say, because I think OP is strictly asking, is it okay that they ask their son, John, not to invite his best friend over for his birthday party?
For the family celebration.
Yes. Based off of how he's interacted with the family so far.
Correct.
Now, OP does say before I answer this, they would think about it if OP's best friend apologized for how he behaved before in previous events.
Correct.
So they're not being brash about this.
They're also not prohibiting their son
from hanging out outside of the family event.
Correct.
I think I'm going to have to lean on, I don't believe our OP is the a-hole.
So, the consensus on Reddit, our poster is not the a-hole.
Okay.
And a lot of people provided different perspectives, but let me go ahead and give you 2 comments from our Redditors that I think gave me a lot of food for thought. The first one was, parents who are this protective often don't respect their children's rights to boundaries. It's very possible he is accustomed to being expected to answer very personal questions and having private behavior scrutinized. He may literally have no clue that there is such a thing as privacy.
Interesting.
And that's taking it from a point of view where he's possibly not neurodivergent, but is under an extremely strict household.
Okay.
Now, to flip away from that, let's go ahead to our other comment that I found. And they said, neurotypical people are not born with manners either. They are taught what is and isn't appropriate, mostly by their parents, throughout their childhood. When considerate people have autistic kids, they tend to work extra hard / somewhat overdue teaching them the superficial / easy to teach parts of politeness. Protective parenting is code for raising kids in a cult with social rules that strongly diverge from the mainstream. He just didn't know was on purpose.
Interesting. Okay.
We had a bunch of commenters in this section, and a lot of the views were very split based on experiences.
It sounds like either the parents were at fault or that the child in question is doing it because he wants to do it.
Correct. Or you have it where, yes, there could be where he's neurodivergent, but then you have the other flip side where a lot of people in our comment section say that they are neurodivergent, but they still know to have manners. And when they're told that something that they're doing is wrong, they apologize and they correct it.
Okay. So they were saying that he would have known that this was wrong because he was being told this throughout the events that he had gone to previous.
Correct. And now what we're seeing, especially if he's rebutting, let's say he is neurodivergent, and he's rebutting all of this, saying that he's just being honest or he just wants to know, and he's no longer accepting the boundaries that's been placed before him. Now that's an issue that falls more on his parenting, and that if he was autistic or on the spectrum and was not being taught how to deal with this in a normal social setting, that this would become a problem. I had very interesting standpoints here. Is he or is he not is really a big question, but regardless, the moment that you're told to stop doing something, and he was given 3 chances,
Sure.
now truly the onus falls on him. Our poster is not wrong in saying you don't need to be with somebody that's going to upset your family. On top of that, our poster hasn't gone and I guess you can say alienated that relationship with her son.
Sure.
It hasn't forced him to stop talking to him, has just said, look, when it comes to family stuff, he's not invited. So as far as the majority have said, not the a-hole.
Okay.
And I can see it. I can see it from all sides. Well, let's go on to our very last story. And I'm excited for you to hear about this little surprise.
There's a big smile on your face.
Yes. Would I be the a-hole by not telling a guy I've been dating for a month that I'm having artificial insemination to be a single mother? Prior to lockdown, I decided to be a single mother by choice. The journey to accepting this has taken 2 years and included counseling and a very thorough plan to ensure I could do this alone. I was happy with my decision, and I was at a good place in life where I realized my desire to be a mother was stronger than looking for a partner, which may or may not happen. And with my fertility declining, I chose to go down this path as a solo woman. Right before I was due to have artificial insemination with donor sperm, the pandemic hit and treatments were canceled. There was no timeline for when things may reopen. For a few days, I was devastated as I was so mentally prepared for this, and then I picked myself up and decided to park my plan. After all, I didn't have a choice. I downloaded a dating app out of curiosity and figured that I could still chat to guys and see what happened without any expectation, really. I've been talking with a guy, let's call him G, and it's only been a month, so very early stage. However, we've met up twice, with a third meeting planned, spoken many times on the phone, and I get a really good feeling from him. For the first time in years, quite frankly, I feel emotionally connected with a man, and it feels completely natural and promising. During this time, my clinic called me to say they have had approval to open, and do I wish to go ahead this month with my treatment. I want to be a mother more than ever, so I said yes, and I'm now on medication with my appointment set for next week. While there is no guarantee I'll get pregnant on the first go, I have a conflict in my mind about informing G of my plan. On the one hand, it's at such an early stage of our romance without yet being anything committed that I feel like I'm bringing something up prematurely. On the other hand, I wonder what may happen as time goes on. Am I just delaying the inevitable? Is it deceptive of me not to inform him of something so fundamental in my life? A friend told me that I'd sabotage a potential relationship with him by telling him of this plan right now, and that a man who is really into me will accept me even if I'm pregnant, and that more time is needed for him to really get to know me. But in my mind, I'm wondering if it will piss him off by suddenly saying, "Hey, I'm pregnant, by the way." We've spoken loosely about wanting kids in the future, so I know he'd like a family, but it was a brief passing comment. I'm also not willing to wait to get into a long-term relationship, and we are far too early to be thinking about a family together. Would I be the a-hole by keeping quiet about the plan for now?
What a sticky situation this is. Good find. Like all
Thank
these
you.
stories. Again, it's so nuanced. Good job.
Thank you.
So, all that being said, I'm going to have to say that the friend that gave ROP advice is not a good friend, because she's basically telling ROP to start a relationship up on a lie. I think that's very dangerous waters to be in, especially if you do believe there might be something. Because when you do reveal this, if you follow the game plan as to your friend's advice, let's say for sake of argument, you're dating, it's going well. You get into that mark 5, 6, 7 month period. Things are getting a little more serious. And then you tell him, because at some point she would have gotten pregnant and there would have been a bump along the way at that point. He starts going, well, hold up. Wait a second. If he's doing some math, if you're already appearing and you guys didn't start whenever you started being physical at whatever point that happens in your relationship, he's probably doing a little bit of math going, that's probably not mine. And then you're going to have to start talking. He's going to do a little bit of math and then he's going to go, so I probably met you when you were inseminated. You didn't tell me about this for 7-8 months of our relationship.
I also have to put out there, I can't even begin to think that if someone were showing and I was in the middle of a relationship as the guy, that I would think that they were inseminated to begin with. I would think that they cheated.
Sure, you might get into that murky water. Then you're talking about messing with trust. If you want any hope in that relationship being anything other than it is right now, you definitely need to disclose that that's what you're thinking about doing with your life. So what an interesting conundrum, like the timeline and everything. And she's not going to be dating anymore because she's done with it and she wants to be a mother. COVID hits. There's this couple week span where everything's shut down, so she can't go further with her plan immediately. But then in that time period, she finds this guy. And then all of her plans, they're still happening. But now there's like this relationship that's budding. How interesting. Life always seems to happen so organically crazy that you couldn't write it. I think the best chance you have, especially with that relationship and what you're choosing to do with your life, you need to be honest with him. Because if you're going to build the foundation off of lies, that is all you'll get from that relationship. So I do believe you would be the a-hole if you went down that path. Please do not listen to that friend.
Well, the consensus was she would be the a-hole. Now, let me go ahead and read you an update.
Hey, oh, please be good.
I guess we'll see. A month ago, I asked if I would be the a-hole for not telling a guy I had only started dating that I had plans to become a single mother. I was scared I'd lose him, but also felt I would be deceiving him by not telling him, thus making the investment in our relationship unfair. The comments were pretty much unanimous in that I'm an a-hole and I needed to tell him, and this validated my decision to go forth and be honest, as nervous as I was. I explained my situation about taking 2 years to come to this decision, how my fertility clinic had shut down due to COVID, which is why I had gone back onto dating apps. I explained how my clinic had reopened after meeting him and how important it was to me to continue in my journey to become a mother. I knew this was baggage he hadn't expected and that there was a chance he would step away from the situation. Well, he didn't. We're now in a committed relationship and he's been supporting me in my journey. I've had 2 unsuccessful artificial inseminations with donor sperm, my original plan. And we've spoken about having a child together. As early on as it may seem, he told me my honesty made him consider his own future and how he really wants a family someday, and how he has admiration for me being honest about my situation, and how he wants to help me fulfill my desires to be a mother, whether with him or with donor sperm. Either way, he wants to be a part of my life. I wanted to provide this update as a positive outcome has come out of being labeled an a-hole, and it pushed me to do the right thing, which has in turn meant I have the most understanding and accepting boyfriend. Had I kept this info from him, it would have played on my conscience as well as most likely have caused him to not trust me. So thank you. Edit. Gosh, I didn't think this post would blow up in this way. Thanks for the lovely words of support, and also those of you taking the time to provide food for thought of co-parenting and step-parenting. This is new territory for me, and I don't know anyone else in my day-to-day life who has been in this situation. So it's so valuable for me to hear your views and gain new perspectives. Thank you, kind Reddit community.
Atta girl. That's fantastic. Don't build your relationships off lies. And that's crazy because this gentleman in the story is like, he is so enamored with her honesty that it made him think about his life. That's fantastic. Be honest with people. Like, that's really great. I'm happy she didn't listen to that one friend because that's terrible advice. Why would you ever do that to someone?
Every home has 4 foundations, and one of those foundations should always be honesty.
Gotta be. That's fantastic. She got to see other people's viewpoints and applied it to what she was asking, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions she could have made going forward. It looks like she's found a partner.
Oh, yes.
Someone to
One that
grow with.
accepts her thoroughly and her future.
That's great for both of them. So was there any more updates? Are we getting like a baby bump?
Well, we actually have one more update from what I can see.
All right.
So our poster says, I tried posting the below to AITA as I had a number of requests for an update, but it turns out you can't post more than one update. So I'm posting this to my profile instead for anyone who may be interested. Thanks for reading and for being interested. I wanted to put out an update after receiving a number of requests and good wishes. It's been 14 months since the last post. I commenced fertility treatment back in June of 2020, just after my third date with G, having told him of my plans. After 3 failed rounds of IUI insemination, the last of which ended in an early miscarriage, I switched to IVF and fell pregnant the first round in October of 2020. I was with G when the clinic called to confirm my pregnancy, and he was genuinely thrilled for me. Me and G continued to date during this time. Last summer is full of lovely memories of park picnics in the sun, long scenic walks, cooking dinners together, and generally wholesome hanging out. My country fell into a strict lockdown in December of 2020 at 3 months pregnant. We continued our relationship long distance as he moved from my city back home temporarily to look after his mother. We found ways to keep things alive, sending each other gifts, for example. G moved back to the city earlier this year, and throughout the final stages of my pregnancy, we continued to see each other. 2 months ago, I gave birth to a boy, B. I was only allowed one consistent guest, which was my birth partner, my mother. I kept G up to date and sent videos / had calls with the hospital. He couldn't be with me physically, but he'd packed a whole bunch of useful things for my hospital bag and ensured things were as comfortable for me as possible. G describes my son as an extension of me. Despite not being the biological father, he wants to play a fatherly role, which warms my heart. I've been learning a lot about what I need to do to ensure B can thrive without a biological father and have great male role models around him like G. It hasn't all been plain sailing though. I moved in with my mother when I commenced fertility treatment. That was always the plan, to help support me, not financially, but rather to look after B. And she was cynical of me dating someone who wasn't the biological father. She found the whole thing unconventional, which it is, and unrealistic. A week ago, they met for the first time, and she liked him and is slowly accepting him. B is my world and my priority. Me and G are still on a learning curve to figure things out, but what we're sure about is that we want to build a life together. Thank you to all of you who took the time to offer constructive and encouraging advice. I sometimes wonder if I'd be with G had I not told him the truth about my fertility plans, and AITA made that decision very clear for me. So thank you. B would be 1 year old today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great story. That's a good way to end Wednesday.
Yes.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We are regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would love to hear your reviews and your opinions in the comments section below. Don't forget, that last slice of pizza is mine.
No.
Yes, it's mine.
I'm talking about this. This fictitious pizza is mine.
No, it's mine. It's the best piece. It's mine.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.